this fall, I was volunteered to make 14 champagne flutes for the wedding of a daughter of a very good friend of mine. And if you've made any of these, the reason that they sell them is there's something wrong with them when they make them, so they just bust the bottom off and sell them to Woodturners. And they, the stems are a little bit crooked, and if you line up 14 wine flutes together and they're not straight, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It looks terrible. So I made this jig, and it's linear bearings, and I bring it down. I've got the center line scribed on the base, so I put the wood base down where I want it. Put the glass in, glue everything, line this up, and just slowly rotate the glass, and it'll center everything perfect on there, and then I can just let it set until the glue dries. And that's how I produced 14 of them that are all straight and square and look great. I used to use epoxy. I've started using the what is it? It's a clear. What is it? Grizzly or Gorilla Glue. Exactly. Yeah. Clear Gorilla Glue. It fills in. I overcut the hole a little bit big because the stems are a little crooked, and I fill it up with that, and you let it set for 2 hours before it cures, so you have plenty of time to get everything square and straight and looking good and clean up any of the excess, and it's worked really well for me. So I ended up making 20-some, which is a good tip if you want to improve your turning skills. Turn 20 identical items. It'll really test your skill. You'll improve tremendously doing it. It's a great.
You leave the glue on the jig the whole time it's curing?
Yeah, I'll glue it up and let it set for, let's say, a couple hours before I moved on to the next one. And it ended up.
Where do you buy the glass from?
I got this from Craft Supply. And they were delighted when it worked out really great. Like I say, I'd made like 20 of them, and this is one of the rejects. Mm-hmm. I had my quality control, my wife check over and pick out the good ones, and that worked out great. I brought this in about a year ago and showed you guys. I'd had this from One Way for quite a few years, and I used it very sparingly because I hated the way the surface went. And I got this bar from D-Way Tools. It's super, super hard, and used JB Weld on there to hold it in place. And it's phenomenal. It's become my favorite turning tool. I have never had to touch it with a stone or a diamond. The worst I've had is getting tar and resin from the wood on there, and I'll just take Scott-Brite and wipe it off. But it's slipperier than any tool rest I've used. And I've got a robust curved one to go inside bowls. I love that, but this is better than the robust. I think it's because the robust is welded. It kind of takes some of the temper out. This stays super hard and slippery. And I bought this one about a month ago. This is a tool rest I made myself years ago, and that's Thompson shafting, which is super hard on the outside, but it did not compare to this. So I put that on there, and I've been using it for roughing out bowls and things that just beat the tar out of it, and still haven't had to touch either one of them. So it's a real cheap way to improve your tool rest tremendously.
Did you just glue it onto the front flat part of the original tool, or did you welded it onto?
They've got a YouTube video that shows you how to do it, But what I started out doing is taping it in place and putting the JB weld in a couple spots, letting that cure. Once it got good and hard, so everything was held in place, then I went back and did the whole bar on both sides with JB weld, and then let it cure. And you can take a sandpaper or a round file and knock off the high spots after it's cured. And I can't say enough good about this.
Does it come with a group then that it slips onto the?
No, you just sit it on top there and hold it with tape until the little tabs of JB Weld lock it in, and then glue it the rest of the way. Yeah, the top of this was originally, you can see it from here, was an edge like that, so it just taped in place. And I say, they've become my favorite tool rests, and I'm using the tar out of them, and I haven't been able to damage it yet.
What are the bars called again?
It's M42 tool steel. That's super hard. It's, I think, an R68, and comes from D-Way Tools, and he makes tool rests and all kinds of tools, similar to Thompson stuff.
Did you make it extra long for a reason, or just because it was?
It came 14 inches, and I glued it on there. I was going to cut it off. You can use a cut-off wheel, high-speed abrasive wheel, but I decided, the heck with it. I'll just leave it on there, see how it acts, and so far it hadn't been a problem. Of course, I don't normally do real hard cutting out on the end there like that.
Art built this, and I think it's based on John Beaver's jig design. Yeah, he sells them. But anyway, it's so you can hold a bowl on for a bandsaw. So you've got your runner here, and so you can lock this down and push it straight through if you want a straight cut, or if you want a wave bowl like this, you just run it. You clamp the you clamp it down to your Joe clamp.
Okay, he's having the way.
And hey, come on, Joe. I didn't mean to insult you. But anyway, you clamp this down and you can cut it through your handsaw. And Dave Wilder, he looked at this bowl here. He took it through the bandsaw with the same jig. But anyway, there you go. Art did a good job on this, and it's not something you'll use very often, but so if anybody wants to borrow it, $500 deposit, you can have it for a week or so.
Make the check out to Art? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is the banjo on my lathe, and this is a light, a little gooseneck on it, and it mounted on there, and that follows. When I first did it, I was afraid that it was going to be in the way, but it really works pretty slick. And here is a close-up of how it's fastened on. The gooseneck came with a base and throw it away, and this is just a little piece of aluminum. It's even simpler than the other jig. Not much simpler, but it's pretty simple.
Would a magnet light also work?
I kept knocking those off. You don't knock this off. And so I've got a magnet on the power head, and then I got this one on the banjo, and sometimes I'll turn that one off because it's in my eyes if I'm hollowing. So you just have light on this. It's got LED lights on. It's pretty bright. And then right here on the lathe I got that. It's a piece of Velcro, and Abernet will stick to that. And so you got it right there handy. You can pick it up and do it and put it back instead of throwing it over there on the table and losing it. And so anyway, am my time up? Everybody doing all right?
You're doing good.
Okay.
My tip is for more so beginners, turners. The shape of your bowl is very important. When you have it on the lathe, sometimes you can't see exactly what to cut off and what to leave. So if you take this, my husband made this. It's PVC pipe. You cut it on the table saw, and if you put it on your lathe and bend it, it will show a perfect cut. Okay, if there was a little bit of air in there, then you mark it with your pencil. And then you go back and you go, that is where 1/16 of an inch needs to come up. And it works on all kinds of shapes. And you will get really nice feeling shape to your bowl. Yeah. So if you're a beginner lathing and you want to get a really nice, it will work. Never mind. Pencil. PCV pipe.
You're still educating.
Yes. One of the important things, let's see here. No, I want to show the tip here, is getting a secondary bevel on your turning, on your tool.
Low, Steve.
What?
Show it down low so we can go to that other camera.
Okay.
There you go, work with that. Pick it up. There you go.
Okay.
Sideways.
This is harder than it looks, people. Anyway, one of the things that's important, if you keep just your single bevel on your tool, as you're going into the bottom of the bowl, you can bruise that wood real easy, or that bevel ends up pushing the tip of your tool out, and so your bottom you get a little peak in your bottom. So it's really important to get a secondary bevel in here that shortens that curve, that allows you to make that curve without bruising your wood. And that's what this 1-inch cube is for. If you've got a Wolverine sharpening jig or something similar to that, you put this 1-inch block at the V in the back, and then you've got your tool on your sharpening jig, and that raises it up and makes it real easy to get that secondary bevel on there. If you want a third little bevel on there, you get a different size block. And that way you get a nice clean bevel that is repeatable, just like your regular sharpening bevel is.
Do you put that on top of the block or?
Yes, in other words, and I thought about bringing it, and I should have, I guess. In your Wolverine jig, there's that V, and you slide this to the very back, and then that pointed area that usually goes in there just fits right here. And so what you're doing is moving that up and raising it just a little bit. And that's how you get that secondary bevel. It's just a 1-inch cube. If you wanted a third bevel, you could go with a 3/4 inch cube, and that will lower it just a little bit and knock that bottom corner off. The other thing that I brought is I like things that are simple. I'm not a machinist or anything like that. And a lot of us use the the one-way coring jig. And one of the challenges in the coring, as you're coring, is how deep is my tool going to go? And I saw this and I thought, boy, this is really simple and I can do this real easy. This is a piece of wood. It says chuck on here. I slide, this piece fits the tool or the headstock, and then this distance from the headstock to the outside part of the jaws on your chuck. In other words, that is a consistent distance. And what I did, I just took a piece of plywood, took a not a T-square, but a 90-degree angle, and marked it on there so that I could cut a straight line. And then I've got 3 different size coring things. One a 13-inch. You put this up against the base of your coring device, and that shows you then, you move that back and forth, and that shows, okay, here's how much wood I've got it from the bottom to that one. And you do the same thing, you know, here's the 11.5-inch, you know, you line that up, or if you're going real small, here's a 9-inch. And it just makes it real simple. I used to try to do, I had one that I would put in the hole where the cutter went with a laser on it, but it would move back, you know, wasn't real accurate. So I thought, I saw somebody post this on AAW website, and I thought, geez, that's easy, I could even do that. So it's a real simple, drill some holes in them and hang them in the wall.
So I thought all week, every time Larry kept sending out, anybody have tips and tricks? And I kept thinking, I probably do, and I can't think of them. But then I was chatting with Julia and a couple other people this morning, and 2 things came up that I do. One is I have I think it's probably MDF round, and I put a faceplate on the back, and then I put stick-on sandpaper. So it's 12 inches, I put stick-on sandpaper, and I sand everything, so I don't have to have a separate belt sander, nothing like that. It just turns onto the lathe, and I sand it, and then I use one of those nice erasers. I've used the same piece, I've got other sandpaper, but I've used the same one for a couple years, and I can still use it, and it works great. And then the second one that may be even more important, Julie and I were talking about wood, I said I have a drying box, and she goes, oh yeah, I'm thinking about doing a solar kiln or something like that. And I said, no, I have a Home Depot box. A friend of mine in DC built it before I left for me. I mean, you use any moving box, you put a hole and you put a computer fan reverse so it's pulling the air in to it, and then there's a hole on the other side of the box that lets the air go out, and then you have a heat source. It's just a light bulb that's in I get that one that's encased, and you just set it right there. It pulls that heat in, so I can rough turn to 1 inch, and in 5 days I can turn dry. So you don't have to wait 6 months or a year for all those bowls and put them in bags and things like that. It works amazing. And there's a video online, just put cardboard box drying kiln or something like that, and it'll show you a video how to do it, but it's really easy and it's come in really handy because I'm not patient.
So I knew that Ladd was going to talk about a sanding disc that she was going to forget to bring. So that's what she's talking about. I took a piece of plywood and a faceplate, 4 screws, doesn't take a lot. And yeah, just like she said, this is sticky backed.
PSA.
It's probably, I don't know, 100 grit, something close to that. And where I use this a lot is, some of you have seen my snowmen. I don't think I've ever brought in the little nativity sets that I've made, but when you want to sand a flat, like on the snowman, it's a 2-piece thing. I'll sand his head on this, picture it like this on your lathe. I'll come in and just sand the tenon off, make sure it's good and flat so that the adhesive, the glue, will stick. I've used it on other parts where you just want to sand a little flat on the side of a round piece, and it's great for that. And like she said, for those of you that don't know, because not everybody in here knows, you can buy, it looks like an eraser stick. You could use an old tennis shoe sole, not the canvas, and you run that at full speed and just take your eraser, and it takes all that other sanding gunk out of there. And that's the same piece of paper I've had for probably 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 seasons of making snowmen. The other thing, when you have friends in the club, go back to the other one there, Bart, the one you were on. There you go. When you have friends in the club that like you, and I've got 2,
Are you sure?
they make you things. Mr. Himes has made me some jigs, and Mr. Martell has made me some things on their plastic printers. You see the grooves there? Yeah. That's where you lay a pencil. And this concave area you place on top of your live center on your lathe. Whenever you're marking for your tenon on the bottom of a piece, bowl, vessel, whatever, you lay that on there and you put your pencil here. If you want the recessed tenon, it's this one. If you want the spigot on the outside tenon, you use this one. Where's my, there we go. Two different jaw sets here. So then you've got a pencil line to cut to get a much better, more precise tenon. For any of you that have been around a long time, I'm a big one on that at the fair. If you're going to turn a tenon, turn a good tenon so it doesn't come flying off. And this is a great tool for that. And I couldn't find the other one. I think I like the other one better. It actually, he made me a different one that wraps around the threads on the live center, and it's embedded with 2 nails. And you just do a little scribe on that. So bring one of those in next month and show everybody, or I'll try to find mine. I couldn't find it. And then this. For those of you that are on Facebook, and lad, I think I'm 6 days of being a perfect January, but for those of you that are not on Facebook, I kind of threw out a challenge at the first of the month and said, wouldn't it be fun to go into the shop every day in January and turn? And I missed 5 or maybe 6 days. I'll have to go back and look. But, and the idea was just, January, gloomy, you get the blues, and you can't turn and have the blues. So turn your blues away. That'd be a good song, I think, right? Okay, so I played a lot with different things that I posted. I think I turned 11 or 12 little rice bowls. I was playing with, I love the shape of a rice bowl when you go to a restaurant. I just love that shape, and I was playing with that a lot. And before, or I went back to some bigger bowls to finish them. How many of you have gone through the bottom of a bowl? Yeah. This is very simple. This is very old school, and this is an Ernie Lawrence purchase. When Ernie passed, this was one of the things that I bought out of his shop sale. And I had a textured, pretty ambrosia maple bowl. I reversed it, put it on my vacuum chuck that Kurt and I were talking about earlier, and I made my final cut, and I started hearing, if you've been turning long, you know when you hear thin. I started hearing thin, and I went, oh, crud. I took it off of the vacuum chuck, held it up to the light, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish it. So before I went on to any other bowls, I thought, I've got all these depth gauges that I bought and everything, and I saw this. I was going through my tool drawer, and I saw this, and I thought, I've not used that since I bought it. And it's real good for drilling the depth once you reverse a piece, but you can still use it whenever you're going back to a roughed out bowl, which I did several times this month. And all you have to do, measure your bowl to the bottom while it's in the chuck, or eyeball it, make a pencil mark, or put a piece of painter's tape on there.
Or a magnet.
Okay, that's too high tech for me. Doc said or a magnet. But make your mark, and then put it in there. If you have to put a little dimple in the bottom of your bowl to get it started, put it in with a bowl gouge or spindle gouge. Just a little dimple is all it takes. And just ease that in there until you see it even up with the rim. You won't go through the bottom. So that's been around for a long time, but I think a lot of new people probably have not seen it because it's kind of gone out of fashion in turning. So, yes? Yeah, you can do that too. Darryl will use a Forstner bit. Darryl West will do that with a Forstner bit and drill all the way to the depth that he wants and then stop. And then when you get to the bottom, you know where the bottom is. So you can purposely make it whatever thickness in the bottom of that bowl you want.
The Forstner bit's going to still give you that little dimple.
Yeah, it'll have a little dimple. You got to account for that. Don't use a brad point bit. Use a jobber bit like this. Or if you do use a brad point, realize that it's going to Yeah, go down just a little bit further. And a jobber bit like this, and it would be easy to make. Again, Ernie, I'm sure, I don't know whether he turned this handle or not. He may or may not have, but I'm betting he got either made or bought the handle and put his own drill bit in.
Can you show the handle? I can't see that.
Just enough to hang on to. Looks like what? Yeah. Yeah, Pilger's over there getting ready to, let me blow on that, I'll show you how to draw them in. But yeah, it's just a one grip tool, and you just steady it. You could use your tool rest if you felt nervous about it, but when I was new and saw somebody use this, I thought, I don't know, that could get out of my hand. It won't. It's pretty simple. So, that's all I've got. Is there anybody else?